In the decades after World War II, being unmarried and pregnant was the ultimate taboo. For some, the consequences were devastating. In July, ITV News heard from mothers forced to put up their children for adoption.
I passed him over and she said, "Oh, kiss him goodbye." And I knew that was the last time I would ever see him. It was a terrible, cruel way to treat mothers and children.
Many were sent away to mother and baby homes like St Monica's in Kendal, a Church of England home with a dark history. ITV News obtained burial data which shows 45 babies were born and died at the home. We've learnt their names and how old they were when they died. Some lived for just a few hours, others a couple of months. They are buried in a mass unmarked grave. We've now heard allegations from researchers and family members that mothers were denied modern medical care and infants with disabilities left to die in agony.
These women were treated as second-class citizens and their babies were treated as second-class babies, and in some cases worse.
The home was open for 5 decades before closing in 1970. The local MP wants answers.
It would appear that the babies who died here in Kendal were those who were deemed so awful, deemed to be less desirable for adoption. They were babies probably with disabilities or other medical conditions, and they were not afforded the most up-to-date maternity and health care that other babies may have been. It just smacks of society then, and maybe even now, thinking that some human beings are less important than others.
Is there evidence of criminality here?
There is evidence they were not given the treatment that they could have had that would have meant that at least some of them would have lived.
Cumbria Police has been investigating and is appealing to anyone with new information to come forward.
One man told me how he was born in the home back in the 1950s, and decades later, when he finally traced his birth mother, she told him how just hours after giving birth, she was forced to scrub floors. Another mother, whose son died at the home, suffered lifelong trauma. She tried to take her own life more than 100 times. She was laid to rest alongside her baby son. The suffering endured here was not a one-off. Since our first report aired last month, more birth mothers have shared their experiences of cruelty and abuse at other homes.
I haven't fully ever recovered from that experience. It was unnecessary cruelty.
It was the mid-60s when Anne was a teenager and pregnant. She was sent away to a home in Swansea and has never forgotten the cruelty at the hands of the midwife.
I was extremely frightened, but not only was I frightened, it was an atmosphere of, again, punishment, because you couldn't have anything for pain, because again, you'd been a bad girl.
So they refused to give you any pain relief during labour?
They said things like, "You will remember the pain and then you won't do it again." It was about, again, about a punishment. I took that off the cot and hid it.
These treasured possessions were all she had left of her son. She was even cheated out of saying goodbye.
The midwife that was with me during labour said, "Oh, he's gone. He's in that building over that way, and his new mummy is coming to collect him, and you'll never see him again." And we went to the bathroom, and she put some salt in the bath and told me to sit in that, and then got my breast and expressed the milk out of it because I won't be needing it.
Hundreds of thousands of women had their children taken against their will at these church or state-run homes. As a 16-year-old from London, Susan was pressured and coerced, told repeatedly she had no choice. The pain of that day, 60 years ago, has never left her.
I should have gone back for my son, that I promised I would, and I didn't. But it was what I wanted to do. But in the end, the more time went on, the harder that became.
She went on to marry the baby's father, but he too was traumatised.
He knew I was very unhappy, and that's why when we did finally marry, the marriage just didn't work. And I really do believe that that was one of the reasons that he took his own life. And I probably didn't help, because I didn't probably appreciate at that time what he was going through.
In the years that followed, Susan tried to find her lost son, but in 2009 was told he didn't want any contact.
When I got the rejection, it was just like losing him again. I know that now at my age I will end up, going to my grave never knowing this child. That I didn't ever want to give up, and I just would like to know who he is.
All of this has caused lifelong trauma. While the Welsh and Scottish governments have formally apologised for their part in this scandal.
You've had to endure such appalling historical practices in Wales, and for this, the Welsh Government is truly sorry.
For the decades of pain that you have suffered, I offer today a sincere, heartfelt and unreserved apology.
The UK government is yet to apologise. It's described these historic forced adoptions as abhorrent and says it will look to learn from the approach of the devolved nations.
Without question, the state was involved. And we were lied to. I was told I wouldn't have any welfare benefits, which was untrue.
Anne's son found her 27 years later, a moment she describes as magical. Susan still hopes one day for her own reunion. Back in Cumbria, the Diocese of Carlisle said it was abhorrent to think that any child should be denied proper medical care and urged anyone with information to contact the police. There is now a local campaign for a permanent memorial to babies who died here, babies who were wanted, who were loved. Sarah Corker, ITV News.